to look for this morning at the story of the Syrophoenician woman because I really believe that is probably one of the most important stories in all of the Gospels. All right, and that's a big claim to say this is one of the most important stories. So I want us to really look at that story this morning. In the story, we have a woman coming to Jesus who is a foreign woman. She's a foreigner. She's from a different faith community. Probably maybe even speaks a different language, different culture. And she comes to Jesus and she is desperate because her little daughter is demon-possessed. Now I want you for a moment to just imagine that you are that mother. And you watch every day your daughter's life slipping away, your daughter becoming less and less every day of who you know your daughter is. How would you feel? See, this woman, this mother, is desperate. And so she comes to Jesus and she pleads with Jesus out of that desperation to help her. She's literally begging Jesus. Have you ever had to beg somebody for something? Your pride goes out the window. When you have to beg for something, it is the most humbling act to have to beg somebody for something you need. This is a scene of desperation. But the problem is she's not one of them. She's not from their faith. She's not from their culture, and so for the disciples, she's not their concern. She doesn't fit the bill for who they're there to help. You see, the reality is we have often many programs that are there to help those who feel as desperate in our world today as this mum did. But the problem is very often, like Jesus and the disciples, we have this mandate of who we want to serve. And very often we end up turning desperate people away because they don't fit the category of who we think we're there to serve. So yes, we want to be able to help you, but I'm sorry, you're on drugs. We can't help you. Sorry, we want to be able to help you, but you've already had food this month, so we turn you away. Sorry, we can't help you because you earn that little bit too much, that you're just not poor enough. Sorry, we can't help you because you don't have the right documentation. Can you see how easily it happens? That we turn people away because they don't fit our narrow definition of who we are entitled to help. And so then this very interesting interchange happens between Jesus and this woman. In fact, this is a passage that I think many people have often felt very uncomfortable with in the Bible. Because we know what Jesus says to this woman is wrong, right? When you read that passage, you know, what on earth is Jesus doing? Our conscience, the Spirit of God in us, tells us, whoa, Jesus, whoa. That was not a good thing to say. Because Jesus says to her, I have come only to the lost sheep of Israel. And then he goes on further to say, it is not right to take the bread from God's children and give it to dogs. Inferring, of course, that the Canaanites are dogs, that she is a dog. We know that that wasn't right? The Spirit in us tells us that. And so when we read that, we immediately, something jars in us and we say, whoa, something is wrong here. Because that is also not consistent with the Jesus that we have encountered in every other story in the gospel. What on earth is happening here? Was it not possible that if Jesus was fully human, at some point he may have seen his calling a little too narrowly? Was it not possible if Jesus is fully human that he might in some moments have almost forgotten his calling? Seen his mission too narrowly? Is it not possible if Jesus was fully human that there are moments when he is exhausted and inside and outside he is just saying, hold on, back off, right? Because he tried to go to this home where nobody knew him, right? He's trying to escape the crowds. He's exhausted, he needs space. Could he not in that moment have said, hold on, I'm not here to feed the entire world. I'm only here to focus on this particular community and people. You see, we forget that Jesus was fully human. And don't we at all, as fully human beings, sometimes forget our values? Don't we sometimes, as fully human people, feel so stretched that we snap and say, you know what, I can't do another thing, just back off. And sometimes we say things we don't mean in that moment, right? In this passage, Jesus is exhausted. And out of his exhaustion, he forgets the fullness of his reason for being. Because the reality is, Jesus didn't come just for the lost sheep of Israel. We're told, for God so loved the world that he gave his only Son. Jesus came for the entire world. He came for us all. But in that moment, Jesus slips into this Jewish nationalistic way of thinking, and he begins to just simply say the things that a Jewish nationalistic person would say. You're not the children of God. You are not the people of Israel. You're not our problem. But this woman is courageous. This woman, as our colleague says, backchats Jesus. Now, I don't know if you like me as a parent. I can handle just about anything. I can handle the messy room, right? I can handle the sometimes breaking the curfews, right? What I can't handle is don't backchat me. Huh? You know, have you ever had kids? And the minute that mouth opens and you're just like, don't go there, boy, don't go there, don't backchat me. In this moment, this woman, who's not even an Israelite, she's a woman, backchats the Son of God. And she says, no. Even the dogs have the right to eat the crumbs that fall off of the table. What this woman is saying is, even we are entitled to the grace and the love of God. God's love and grace does not belong only to you. It belongs to all of us. Can you imagine the courage it took for that woman to say that? And sometimes that kind of courage is only born out of desperation. And so she argues with the Son of God. And she does it because she believes this with all of her heart. That all people belong to God. All are equally loved by God. And God desires the healing and the life of all people. Now, when you are challenged like that publicly, when somebody speaks back to you publicly, how do you respond? Most times we become defensive. Most times we immediately want to throw something back. We become angry. But it's interesting that Jesus doesn't do this. He doesn't rebuke her further. He doesn't become angry. He doesn't tell her to get lost. Because deep down, Jesus is humble, and it takes humility to acknowledge when you are wrong. And that's what Jesus does in this moment. This moment for Jesus is almost like a slap in the face, because he's like, oh my God, you are right. And the truth hits Jesus in that moment. And he says in one of the other translations, woman, you have great faith. And we're told her daughter is healed. You see, Jesus' humility allowed him to recognize his mistake and change his behavior. Sometimes, like Jesus, we can know what is right. We can know what we are called to as people of faith. And yet there are moments when we lose sight, for whatever reason, of these things. And sometimes it's just that we're too tired, and we're just too stretched, and we have too much else on our minds. And it's so easy to slip back into our cultural, nationalistic ways of speaking and thinking, and to forget our faith and our values. Jesus was humble enough to let somebody from the outside remind him of who he is and his mission. And so God in some ways is using this Canaanite woman to say, my son, get back on track. All right? It's not that Jesus sinned, it's just he started taking 2 steps to the left, right? And if Jesus was fully human, there would have been times he would have started to veer off. And so God's going, come back, come back. Stay true to who you are and who I have called you to be. And so the question when we read this text is, where are we like Jesus, losing our faith and our values and the perspective of God? Where are we simply saying things because we hear it on the media, or we hear it from the politicians we like, or we hear it from somewhere, and we're spewing the stuff that is not of God? And where do we need to allow somebody to say, that wasn't so good, come back onto the true path? And then, where do we need to develop the courage like this woman to speak the truth of God, even when nobody around us has the courage to say it? You know, if this woman hadn't spoken, she would have betrayed her daughter. Her daughter would never have been healed. She would have betrayed herself and her own dignity as an equal child of God, and she would have betrayed God. You see, when we don't have the courage to speak truth, especially when those around us are saying nonsense, we betray ourselves, we betray one another, and we betray our faith in God. You see, we all in society have the right to be loved. We all have the right to healing and to health care. We all have the right to our families and the safety and integrity of our families. We all have the right to be treated equally in society, the right to equal opportunities. But sometimes, like this woman, we have to have the courage to say, no, this is wrong. It is stripping us of life. And we need something to change. That's real faith. Faith is just not what we believe in our hearts. It is what we profess equally with our mouths and what we live out in the actions in our lives. We need those three things to come together. You know, in the Proverbs it says, a cord that is made of just one string, you can break it easily, right? Even two you can break. But three, if you wrap three strings together, you can't break that. Faith is not just what we believe in our hearts. It has to be what we profess with our mouths and what we live out with our bodies. Can you see that? And when you put those three things together, that is a faith that is strong. That is a faith that somebody cannot break. Where is the weakness in our lives? Maybe we have the faith we believe in our hearts, but we just don't speak our faith. Huh? Maybe we have the faith in our hearts and we speak it, but we're not living it, right? How do we put those three things together so that our faith becomes something that nobody or anything can destroy? That's what the Syrophoenician woman had. Huh? Real faith. And Jesus says, woman of great faith. I don't think the Syrophoenician woman was the easiest woman to have around. My guess is there's probably many other things she would have critiqued the disciples and the community about. But she had faith. She spoke her faith, and she wanted to live her faith. What does it mean for us today to model ourselves on the woman who dared to backcheck God? In the name of God, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Amen.